So this is a first. I'm going to start the video at the end of the video. I wanted to make the second box that was closer to what the final design will be that I plan to install on the boat. I cocked it up in multiple different ways. So, spoiler alert, I'm gonna have to start over. I was debating not putting this up as a video because, I mean, what interest is there in a project that doesn't work? But I have to remind myself, the channel's purpose is to show what it is to take on a big project when you're new. And sometimes that means screwing up so badly that you just have to walk away and start over. I'm hoping by putting out a video that shows something not working, for those of you who might get inspired to take on a project, in part because of this channel, I want you to see that, yeah, you know what, this happens, so be it, so what. The goal for today is to come up with a design for the battery box. I'd filmed a whole section on the battery plan yesterday, and I got to a point where I realized it was time to start over. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because, to me, the purpose of this channel has been to show what the real-world process is of trying to do a project on your own. And sometimes you'll put a bunch of time into something and you'll realize, wipe your hands, sleep on it, start over. So now we're going to start over. So I'm not completely throwing this plan out, but I am going to set it aside and start over. I have 2 sheets of 4 feet by 8 feet boards that are 5.5 millimeter and 15.5 millimeter thick. I know that I want the bottom plate, the side plate, the other side plate, the divider, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, it'll become clear in a minute, the divider and the backing plate out of the 15.5 millimeter board. I want the face plate and the top cover to be 5.5 millimeter. This box will not be the finished box, but I'm going to build this box as if it was the finished box. And the reason I'm doing that is the plywood that I'm using is just cheap construction grade stuff. I want to use this opportunity to get as close as I can so that when I build with the expensive materials, I have the best chance that it's actually going to work well. We have a few things to keep in mind. The first is the height of the batteries from the bottom of the pack to the top of the post, including a little bit of a bump or space for the new funky braided cables. About 217 millimeters. So I'm going to say 220 millimeters tall for the battery pack. 74 millimeters. That is absolutely not right. I'm looking at 704 millimeters long. 295 millimeters. Okay, 220 millimeters tall, 704 millimeters long, 295 millimeters wide. That is the inner dimensions for containing the box, or for containing the batteries. I'm going to have a board that slots in, that retains, that fixes the pack in place. And on the other side of that will be the BMS will get mounted, and the switch will get mounted. I currently have 2 BMS options. I have the JK BMS that Andy was speaking so highly of. The other option I have is the Overkill Solar BMS that I've been using so far. The Overkill Solar BMS has a much more sensible startup process, but it's limited to 100 amps, and it only does passive balancing. This has the weird startup, but it has active balancing at a higher amperage, and it does 150 amps. I specifically chose the 150 amp version because the Anderson connectors that I've selected are rated for 175 amps. At 150 amps, that gives me a 20 amp buffer. I like that, so I'm going to use 150 amps max. This BMS is the fatter of the 2 BMSs because it has a space here for a supercapacitor that it uses to draw out of the most charged cell and dump it into the least charged cell. It's how it does its balancing as I understand it. And this is almost exactly 20 millimeters thick, so 2 centimeters thick. If I mount the BMS off to one side, let's say I put it at the back for now. In the first version, I had the main disconnect switch in the dead center. If I offset it, that gives me space for the BMS on one side, the main disconnect switch on the other side, and it means I can keep this a little bit shorter. So I need to know what's the depth of the cover plate for the back of the main disconnect switch. 45 millimeters. Obviously, I don't want this to be super tight. So if I set the switch to one side and the BMS to the other side, and I leave myself 50 millimeters, 2 inches of space forward of the board that fixes this into place, that should be enough space for everything I need. $704. This is 60. 15.5. 220. Hi, Neela. May you all be blessed with awesomely weird family. Okay, where were we? 220 plus the thickness of the bottom board, which is 15.5. So we're going to say it's going to be 235.5 millimeters. So I know the height of the backing board now, and the fronting or the face boards. The divider is going to be made out of the 15.5 ply, and it is going to be 220 millimeters tall. So we're going to have 704 plus 15.5 plus 60. 779.5. The bottom board is going to stop short of the face and back boards. The top board, the cover board, is going to cover the face and the back board. So it is going to be the 779 plus the 5.5 of the face plus the 15.5 of the back is 800.5. I have no idea how I'm going to make this into actually interesting content. So with that, there's the side view with the divider, cavity for the batteries, machinery, like the switches and BMS and stuff. Looking at the back view, there's the cavity, blah, blah, blah. And the actual cut sheet is this. So now that I've got the rough drawings, it's time to start sketching up where we're going to cut stuff on the wood. So if you recall with the drawings, I was getting things down to like the 0.5 millimeter. There is no way I'm going to be able to cut that this accurately with the rudimentary tools I have. I'm going to still try to get as close as I can, knowing I won't be accurate. My logic being that if I keep trying to get as accurate as I can, then when I'm done, all of my mistakes will hopefully be workable. Have I mentioned in this episode that I am not an expert in any way, shape, or form, and that following my advice might render your projects absolutely garbage? If I haven't, let this be my reminder. I'm just figuring it out as I go. $534. God, I hope I don't make a mistake. That'd be very embarrassing. If that's in, then you know it's foreshadowing. And what was the length? The length was 780. How many professional woodworkers are seeing this and going, oh, what are you doing? And you know what my answer will be? I'm doing my best. Okay, this is going to be side A, side B. Because I've got the 3 boards here, back, side A, side B, I'm probably going to run my saw across like this, and I'm going to have this bottom piece that's just going to be left over. So I want to see how many of my other pieces I can fit into this section, and hopefully have to eat into that as little as possible. 3, 2, 6, 2, 3, 6. This is right there. Somebody emailed me very early on in the project offering advice on building metal boxes for these batteries. I may take you up on that if you're still out there and you're still interested. 441, 295, which is right. 461. That is the divider. Kepler kitty. Meow. You want to come and say hi to YouTube? Hey, buddy. You're going to be really unhappy when I turn on the table, or the handsaw, or whatever you call that thing, skill saw. Does the internet want to see your bum? I don't think the internet wants to see your bum hole. Hey, buddy. Today's interlude provided by Kepler. What's this? What's this? This is different. This wasn't here before, was it? You are absolutely adorable, kitty. So what I like to do is brace on either side of my cuts. The thing I don't want, or the thing I'm worried about is, as I cut, I don't want the boards to come down like this and pinch. That's how you get kickback. So I'm trying to make sure that the boards are all going to stay up and flat after they've been severed in two. Careful not to impinge on this line. So I know that because the saw is a radius, this isn't cut clean through. So I'm gonna go grab my handsaw and just straighten that up so that when I cut across this side, this doesn't have to break, it'll be a clean cut. I just talked to the camera when the camera wasn't recording. I've already cut it, but to give you an idea, it was set back about that far. That's from the curve of the blade because I had it set to a shallow cut. So I had to sit here and saw, dramatic recreation, to get it so that I'm here, so that when I run the saw this way and this all falls apart, I don't get tear out. There we go, now it's cut. Ah, no, ah! The wall is not going to appreciate the delicious little drink. Oh, what a waste. This is top. Face. This is too flexible to try to use the table saw, or the skill saw, so I'm just going to hand cut it. So it's been a couple of days because life is like that, and I have already forgotten what I want to cut these panels to. This is one of the reasons why as soon as I cut a board, I write down what the dimensions are, so that if something comes up, I don't have to go back and figure out which piece is which. This is just a standard Dewalt construction site table saw. Accurate? It is not. So I can roll this over to 300 millimeters. I'm gonna go a little bit large. Like, I'll do my first test cut just to see where the blade is going to be, and then I'm gonna work my way, work the fence inwards until I can dial it right in. So what I did, now that the blade has stopped spinning, I've got a little cut, but if you see, the inside of the cut is almost dead on 30 centimeters, 300 millimeters. Close enough that I'm actually not going to adjust it. I don't know if I can show this on camera, but I don't know if that's going to come through or not, but that's pretty close to 295. Certainly close enough. Certainly close enough for this project. They're still a bit long. I got to figure out how to clean that up. I obviously can't run it through the saw like this. I mean, I could, but with that much width relative to a short depth, the chance of it turning sideways and kicking is too high. So I'll probably just use a hand plane. Surprisingly, this is actually pretty accurate. I just popped the breaker. Yeah, see how much slop there is there? This is useless. Dewalt, I will credit you where you deserve it. This is not something you deserve credit on. Now, one of the things I want to do, or I've been thinking about doing, is making splines. If I rip these into 1 centimeter strips, so let's say 8 millimeter strips, these could become my splines. I'm going to do that. I mean, what else am I going to use little pieces like this for? And just like that, a bunch of scrap is turned into splines. What's a spline, you might be asking? Well, most of you probably know already, but for those of you who don't, because I didn't until relatively recently, we're going to cut a groove into the two sides that are going to join, and then we slot this in, and it provides a mechanical contact so it doesn't slide left to right when we glue it up and clamp it down to try to keep everything aligned. So these are scrap. I'm going to use these as my test pieces. But the idea behind this is I want to be able to cut, if I can draw this. It's kind of like a tongue and groove idea, but where it's two grooves and the spines are the tongue. Focus. Sort of like that. I'm going to run this along like this. 5 millimeter depth, 5 millimeter left on either side, 5 millimeter gap cut out. And then those splines should sit in. I'm going to cut them along here and like this. And that should let them sit together with a nice positive contact and lots of gluing surface. So I was trying to get this riving knife to drop because otherwise when I run the blade or when I run the board across to cut the groove, it's going to foul against this. So I backed this off as far as I could, thinking it would come off, and I couldn't get it to move. Push in. You know, there's the great big yellow buttons that are yellow arrows that say push in. and then it drops. I mean, that was pretty simple. I need to draw a 5mm line on that. Where is my pencil? Oh, it's in my head. So what I'm doing here is I'm just drawing a line roughly 5mm up the board. If my blade is lower than that, then the groove should be a good size. That looks about right. Now I bring this in with 5mm. I don't have to be super exact about this because it's a setup piece. I can dial it home. Okay, where's my ear protection? There we go. So you can see where the blade went. My blade is really thin, so even though I cut from both sides, it left a bit of dangling, whatever you want to call it, in there. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to, imagine I wanted to face it, or I wanted to connect it like this. So I'm going to cut the edge here at the 5mm while the fence is still set up. I set the fence back to 6mm, which was enough to take that middle strip out. And now it's a little loose, but it'll do the job. So I'm drawing a line where I want the outside of the cut to be. And now what I'm going to do is move the fence until I get it to about the right place. Now, what is it reading here? 8. Why is it reading 8? I've done something wrong with my math, but I'm going to remember that it's 8 and I'm going to do a test cut. So I've got it about 7.5, somewhere between 7 and 8. So now I can drop that in, relatively decent fit. Take this piece, which I know is a bit loose, but whatever, I'm learning. Drop that on. And there, get a nice little alignment. Is it perfect? No, but I'm using a Dewalt construction table saw. I'm happy enough with this. All right, so I know what I want to do then. It would be nice if this was a little bit tighter. You know what? I'm going to try the other side and see if I can make this a bit tighter. I went the wrong way. Now it's even wider. Okay, but that's why I've got another face. This time what I'm going to do is have the red line just kiss the 5, but on the other side, so it's like 5.25. 5.5. That was the right size. Now, there's still a little bit of play, but not much. Okay, I'm happy with that. The key parts that I want to do this to are the two sides that are going to sit on the bottom. So, where is my pencil? Top. Top. Now, do I want to do the back with slots? Yes, I do, because that'll help me keep it square. All right, so the two sides I'm going to cut are the bottom side, which is going to sit on the bottom, and the back, not the front, so that when I mate the back on, that'll help keep these two nice and square when they slot in. So this is, well, there's no sense saying bottom. I'm going to put top and front because I'm not cutting those. Now I need to do the back. That looks nicer, so I'm going to call that the top, meaning I want to cut a slot down here, across here, and up here. Now, if I did this right, I should be able to start putting this together. dry fit together. Oh, that's a bad piece. Oh, particle board, you're so not mechanically sound. Oh, this is the back. Yeah, this piece here is kind of a little bit kerfuckety. There, now that that's in, that'll hold it a little bit. I am so good at this. Holy shit. Now I need a little piece to go in here. Say about that big. That'll do the job. Like that. And now the back with its edges. Oh, balls. I did something very wrong. What did I do wrong? It's now almost midnight, and clearly I am too tired. I screwed up something. But from a spline perspective, you can see how the splines would have held everything together had I not cocked it up. You can see how the spline works, ignoring the fact that I got my measurements wrong. We'll just pretend that didn't happen and fix it tomorrow. But you can see how the spline comes in down here. So when this all glues together, it'll keep everything relatively nice and square. So with the benefit of night's sleep, I have figured out what I did wrong. I mounted the sides on top of the base. I designed the sides to go on the side of the base. The problem I have now is that if I try to cut a groove onto this side, this whole edge is just going to fall off because that's cut out. An option I have is to make this the bottom and cut my 5mm slot onto the side here, and then turn it over and push it against the side there. The downside to that is that if I cut a slot here, this piece is going to come off. So my attempt to be creative has totally backfired on me. Do I abandon that and just glue it straight onto the outside and call it a day? Or do I cut all new pieces and start over? I need to think about this. If this was a finished box, I would absolutely start over. But thankfully it's not. So I'm just going to keep going because it's about the batteries, it's not about the boxes. Okay, so put those two sides in, got the bottom in. Oh, pretty this is not. So the plan's going to be glue the two sides, clamp them in, and that by sitting on, that was loud, by sitting on these clamps, that'll keep it relatively flat. That'll clamp these sides in, and then I will glue the back on and put clamps front to back to pull the back in tight against this, hopefully. That's going to be one side like that. It's going to be one side like that. And once those are glued up, I'll clamp it in this way. You know what? I need an extra clamp along the bottom here. If you ever wonder why woodworkers never seem to have enough clamps, shit like this is why. Okay, so that will go like that. These will have all been firmed up by then. And then I need to pull front to back like this. But as I clamp that, I'm going to be grabbing the sides and nothing against the bottom, so the bottom's going to be able to push out if it wants to. So I need to have something across the end to fix the back of the bottom piece in place. What can I do that is long enough for that? Is this long enough? Oh, perfect. Okay, so I'll use that for here. I'm going to do something that my teacher always tells me not to do, and I know why. I'm going to use my fingers to spread the glue. The problem with that is If you were doing something finished that you were planning to stain especially or varnish, the little fingerprints you leave behind by touching a piece of wood with a little bit of wet glue on your finger, you can sand and prep and totally miss it until you go to put your stain or your varnish on and suddenly the fingerprint pops out. So I'll do this side first. Be generous with the glue. It's easier to deal with cleanup than it is to deal with your parts coming apart. Sorry, Norm, I'm using my finger. Okay, I will do the bottom of this end. Prototype, not furniture. I'm not killing it at first, I'm just getting things close. Okay, now, pick this up a little bit. I'm running glue down the inside of the spline. Oh, didn't take this side out. Oh, go me. Sorry, I should really have set the camera up on this side so you could see what I was doing, but I don't have the time to switch it up now, I'm sorry. I'm running glue down either groove so that when I squeeze this home, the glue is going to grab onto the splines. Going to be that right there. The first spline in, get that in, get that in. All right. Oh, this is just not going well at all. Oh well, part of learning is clean up. Oh, it's because these are out. That's exactly why I wanted this though. Okay, so that's pushing those back out. Haha, there we go. It's in enough now that the clamps can start to do their jobs. I should probably have taped this piece in place, but I did not. This is not my best work. This is absolutely not my best work. Okay, well, it is what it is now, and it's too late for me to do much more. Once I finish clamping this up, I'll show you what the problem is. Only one clamp left. Shit, it's too short. Let's see if I can pair up some clamps. Okay, for better or for worse, that's how it is. I'll show you what I've done. So this is the divider that's keeping the walls parallel to each other. The problem I'm having is that it looks like this bottom piece is shorter than the walls. So even though I have this board, which should ostensibly be pushing this back, there's a gap, so it's not doing anything. The back has a nice tight seam. I don't know if you can see on camera, but there's a little bit of gapping there. What I needed to deal with that was a clamp that went from the bottom across to here. The problem is these clamps would be in the way. These quick grips, you just can't get the same kind of tension on them that you can with the screw clamps. So that's closed up a little bit better. But when I run my finger across it, I can't feel the transition. That's what I really wanted. Really nice, smooth transition. If I was making this as a finished box, this one I can feel a little bit of the transition, but not much. It'd be really easy to fair that up. So yeah, the only downside is I should have had a clamp down here going to the far end. And of course, not cocked up my splines. That would have been really nice. However, live and learn. So that was a lot more than an hour. But one of the reasons I don't commit to a release schedule is because I am very fortunate to have some wonderful, especially young people in my life. And When they want some attention, they get the priority over the films. If I had a clamp, can you see that? You can see how that corner's up compared to that corner. And there's also a bit of a gap there. What I should have done is had a piece over the top that sort of put everything in square. Oh well. See how this looks on the other side? See, I've got a bit of a, I don't know if you can see that, I've got a bit of a lip here. The spline would have helped prevent that. But that's okay. I can knock this off really quickly with the plane. Now the real question is, will the batteries fit? Let's go upstairs and find out. These are the felt sheets you buy at the hardware store for putting under your furniture so they don't scratch things. So let's cut it up into 2-inch strips. Come on, little skizzers, you can do it. Ooh, maybe not. There we go. Let's get 2 pieces out of that. I'm not going to put it right at the back edge. I'm going to put it in a little bit. See if I can get away with just 4 of these. There's 1. There's 2. Okay. This should now move on the floor relatively well. So let's see if the batteries fit. I know you're talking, or you're hearing me without my head, but my head is still attached. And the box is not done, to be clear. But before I put a lot more time into it, let's make sure it's going to serve its primary function. Oh, that's close, but I mean, of course, that's the point. And survey says, oh, is it ever tight? Which now begs the question, oh shit, I'm peeling the insulation off. Ah! Okay, this is not working so well. I should have made this, say, 2 millimeters wider. So the problem I'm having is that trying to fit this one in is ripping the foam off of this one. Can I do... Geez, I'm going to get some of my compression whether I like it or not. I'm worried this is going to actually pop these off now. Oh, all of this, and it might be too tight. I might have to start over and make another box. Wow, that would be annoying. Oh, damn it. Okay, I have an idea. Give you an idea how tight it is. They're holding themselves up. Sorry if you only see the back of my head. I'm kind of figuring this out as I go. Hey, Tatters. Tatters, I think I have to start over. There's a point where you just have to admit you've made too many mistakes and it's time to start over. Hey, what do you think? What do you think, Tatters? Too many mistakes, time to start over. Wow, this is depressing. Mr. Tatters knows when I'm stressed out. Hey, buddy. Can you think of any way to save this box? So now, well, if you're seeing this, I've already made my decision, but as I sit here right now, I have to decide, do I make this failure into a video? I mean, it would be pretty boring, but the purpose of the channel is to show what it is to learn, and that means sometimes completely picking up and having to start over. I'm going to build a wooden box, and I'm going to do it better next time. I'm the Digital Mermaid.